And we are live. Oh, Chris? Oh, you're on your phone, huh, Christina?
I am at the moment. Google is downloading. I didn't know that. Anyways,
Okay,
it's
I'm gonna make sure I post it
on IG. So
yeah.
I'll welcome everyone. Hello,
Listen,
welcome
I was
everyone.
gonna tell you, I'm like, you're not on the boat. Where are you?
Oh, I'm at a friend's house. Long
Okay.
is being worked on by by my partner right now. But it's an hour away from Jaguar School, so we're spending the night. We're having a slumber party. I'm here
Nice.
in this beautiful spot. It's very nice.
Because I know you said
And
you were looking for a house, so I was like, oh.
that so we can get into that later. We can get into that. But we'll get into secrecy later too, which is
Okay.
interesting. I haven't told my parents, so I was like, "Do I want to hear? Are they listening? Are they? Does it matter?"
You're like, can
Um,
you hear me?
but
Actually,
really,
no, it's really a thing. My friend actually, I just went to lunch with her, and she just bought a house, and I'm one of the only people, like two or three people that know. Like she hasn't told her family nothing, and I'm like, why? But okay. So
we can talk about that.
yeah.
So, and that's a really good intro into the conversation today. I really think so. We are talking about money with Nathalia, and tell me, because you go by, I always forget. Is it Mom Money Boss?
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, on Instagram.
Yeah.
And a contributor to St. Lunita, and also a good friend. And it's so exciting to have you on here to be able to process some of this. I don't know. I'm going to say wounds, healing, growth, family, trauma, all these things when it comes to the topic of money.
Money, honey.
That simple, and it brings up we're going to talk about needs, we're going to talk about wants, we're going to talk about buying from other mujeres, other women of color. We're going to talk about secrecy and spaces, all that we go into in the taboo topic of money. It's like we could talk about money and menstruation, and with being unequal like uncomfortability in most people's books. So we are so excited to have you here with us, and I was hoping to do a intro for our
Yeah.
listeners now and in the future.
Well, hi. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me on here to talk about all these things. My name is Nathalia. I am a money coach, and I'm also a mom. I'm also a wife. I do have a full-time job. I actually work in criminal defense, and I work with indigent clients. That's my day job, fighting the criminal system during the day and then fighting the financial injustice at night, kind of a little bit of everything. So yeah, on my weekends and my free time, that's what I do. I help people build budgets. I help people create debt payoff plans, create savings plans, learn about investing, learn about creating generational wealth. And really, why I got into this is just because I want to get all this information out to as many people as possible and bring up my community, right? Bring up everybody who had no idea what a budget was or how to do that. I was actually really surprised at how many people I knew did not have budgets. And that was really shocking to me. So I just started teaching them how to do it because I did it in my personal life. I got my own things together. I was over $18,000 in credit card debt. And now I'm only $4,000 away from paying that off. And also, I've been providing for my family of three completely on my own since 2017. So on one income, less than $100,000 a year. And the only reason I've been able to do that is because of my budget, right? I've been able to invest. I've been able to pay off debt. I paid off my car, my student loan last year. I've been able to save money, so all these things I've been able to do while still, living my life and providing for my family and, kind of trying to juggle it all. And it's possible. It's possible. Like you don't have to have tunnel vision on only doing one thing, right? I don't only need to get out of debt. I don't only need to save, but you can do all of the things when you have a budget. Yeah.
I am kind of like dropping just in awe. I want to say when you first said about like your day and nighttime thing, I was like, you're like Batman, but you're the opposite of
Yeah.
actually his helping people, not creating like white savior complex, and then like, you know, and exploiting people at the same time. Like you're like the opposite of that, and it's so beautiful. It's so exciting, and I love your transparency, because Renee and I have thrown out there how much debt we have, and knowing that we're you know, yeah, we're together.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I want to say too, when you were saying all that, I was like, oh my God, that's like a superhero, right? Like, need a cape. And I love me a budget. I gotta say, not that I'm good at sticking to the budget, but I love me a budget. I don't like, I think for me, when I remember in college when I first started making my own money, and because I think my motivation to budget was to see how much money I had to go out on the weekend. And so I had like a notebook, like a little tiny notebook, and every paycheck, I think I got paid like either once a week or every 2 weeks, and I would like write how much I got and like all the bills I had to pay, and then like, okay, I have this much left over to, you know, go with. Obviously it's evolved since then. Not so much going out money is the motivation, but when we do get into talking about that, because I've seen you post on Instagram and talking about how, like you said, you know, you've been able to save, you've been able to pay off debt, but you've also said, I think, you can do things that you love to do, right? Like you can take a vacation, or you can, you know, and so like how, you know, how we can kind of be more expansive when we talk about budget. It's not just about like being so yeah, like, oh, we got to do all these things, but you can like budget in luxuries. Right?
My big thing is, a budget doesn't mean deprivation. Like, a budget doesn't mean you can't do the things that you want, because people hear budget and they think, oh, I can't do something, or I can't spend money. And it's actually the opposite, right? Like, I'm still spending money, I'm still doing things, but the difference is I plan for it, and I save for it, and I budget for it, right? So I do things within my means. And if I really want something, then I save up and I give myself time to do it, right? And that's what I always tell my clients. Like, I'm not here to judge you. I don't care what you spend your money on. That's not my priority, right? My priority is that you get your goals met first, then do what you want with your money, right? As long as you're meeting your goals and you're doing what you need to do, then I honestly, if you want to blow it at Starbucks, you want to buy a purse, I could care less, honestly. And I think that's the big difference, and that's the big movement now in more money coaches that are coming up from different backgrounds, right? You know, we've all heard of Mr. Ramsey and his separation, and like, you know, all this stuff of like, don't step foot in a restaurant if you have debt. Like, I'm sorry, but no, like, we're not gonna like.
I feel like I'm not in the know. Who is this person?
He's a big to do in the financial. He's like, what's the other one? Susie Orman. You know who Susie Orman is? She always gets on my last nerve, because she's the same thing where she's like, people spend beyond their means, and if you can't afford it, you shouldn't do it. To me, that's actually, I've always said she's like poor shaming, right? Like, she's basically saying if you're too poor to afford something, you shouldn't do it. And so it's like, so poor people shouldn't be able to have fucking luxuries, or, and again, I don't even think those things are luxuries. I think they're, you know, like going out to eat at a restaurant is not a luxury. That's, everybody should, I mean, should not have to cook for themselves all the time. And so yeah, I appreciate that, like, calling out, because I think, you know, definitely we have to say, like, white people they came up with all the rules for money. You know, they created all the rules for money. And I remember my mom would tell me something like, rich people, they just owe more. That's what she would say. She goes, it's not that they necessarily have more money. She goes, they have more debt. And I was like, but how does that work? But yeah, but I mean, I think it's interesting to have those conversations and put them in the context of, you know, of all these other dynamics of, you know, cultural, social dynamics, you know.
You know, I was listening, there's a really good podcast called Financial Feminist. It's by somebody in the financial world called Tori Dunlap. She's amazing, and I love her. I love her energy. But she was talking about how, you're right, that it's the white man that created the rules, and it's the white man that wants to keep all this knowledge because that's how they keep us down, right? They keep us down by not providing this information. And I've come across that in my own journey 2 times, right? Where I was seeking, help to get my things in order, and it always costs money, of course. And I get investing in yourself, but when you are living on one income like we are, or if you are somebody who doesn't make as much money, I'm sorry, I don't have $6,000, $7,000 laying around to be able to do that. And that was like my biggest thing, was just coming up on these walls, like of people just gatekeeping this information that you want and that you need, of bettering yourself because you don't have the money to put out at once, right? And that you have to make those choices. So I took it upon myself to do it on my own and just figure it out on my own. And I did invest in a investment course, and it was almost $500. I had to ask my friend for help. So me and my friend went in halvesies. And so I was like, you pay half, I pay half, and then we both get to watch it. And then he was like, all right, I'm in. So we bought it, and so I'm telling you, like, I was like, I knew it was something I wanted, and then I made it fit within my budget. And at least this way, my friend and I would both have access to this education. And Meg, thank goodness I did that, because it totally flipped the script for me, right? Like, that changed everything for me, the trajectory of what I was doing and my understanding. So, that was only the start. And it was so important for me, even now in my business, to always make sure that those barriers are not there for people that want to work with me. We always try to be very conscious of our audience, because I'm not going to be probably working with people who are millionaires, right? And I'm okay with that, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that it was like people like me, right? People who are in my circles, in my atmosphere, and that's who I teach. And that's how it started, right? Like, my very first group, without me knowing it, was literally me inviting 7 of my friends to my house to drink wine and make budgets. This was pre-COVID. I remember February 2020. I remember so clearly. And I had my friends come over. I printed out budget sheets for them, and I laid it all out. We were drinking, and then I told them, like, yeah, like, well, we were just like having fun, and I told them how to do their budget. I taught them how it works. I made them write out their expenses, and we sat there and worked on everybody's budgets. Literally, people were sitting in my living room with computers, looking at their credit cards. And so that's how it started. And it was so crazy how just everything has just, one day later.
I mean, I think it's comparable to like Stitch and Bitches or Budget and Brunch, but it's like budget and bitch and wine. I don't know. There's something in the tagline there, and that's beautiful. I love that. That's revolutionary. I mean, I think it is revolutionary, right? People don't want you to do that. Amazon, like the people who are making money off of you not knowing your monies and knowing spending it on and knowing what you're investing in, they don't want you to do that. Totally.
Yeah. I agree. I think that, when we talk about how white men made the rules of money and then have convinced us that, and I don't like to use the word poor for myself, but let's say I'm not rich, not because of the system, but because it's my fault, right? And so I think it's like when we so it's like, oh, you don't need to worry about budgeting because, you're just poor, or right? Like, let the rich people be the rich people because that's who they are. And, somehow like there's this weird, I don't know, but I feel like there's this
the paycheck and we are this whole other thing, like we can invest. Like it's that Rich Dad Poor Dad book, actually. I don't know if you've ever this, like in college, everyone was reading this Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, this sounds actually like not okay to talk like that, like how can we like frame this differently? But the framework is really real. It's like so binary, it's right. They don't want class or middle class is poor now, right? And then upper class is so much like we have a different relationship with money is how they would frame it. And it's like, no, we don't. Yeah. You can't tell us that,
Yeah. And I think that, it's so interesting because like you said, you had to essentially pay to take a course. And you know, and to find this information when, one, this is the shit we should be learning in high school, right? Like these are the kinds of classes that and so then we have to ask ourselves, why are we not taking those classes in high school, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it comes back to something I was sharing with you earlier about, you know, Christine and I, when we started Las Doctoras, I'm like back in 2018, and we were just this podcast. We were just this podcast, and, you know, kept running into limitations around money, around marketing, basically anything having to do with business. And we kept saying, like, we're not business majors, you know, we don't know this stuff. And then again, when we would try to reach out, you know, there was things that were like, I think at the time we felt they were out of our reach financially. And so there was a lot of stuff coming up for us around that. And so it was kind of like we were kind of stuck in like, what the fuck do we do, you know? And last year similarly sent us into like a real, like, we gotta really handle this, because we were seeing more money coming in, but we want it to be smart with it. We wanted it to be, and also knowing like we wanted to build some longevity. We wanted to build some sustainability, knowing the potential of what we had. And so again, we had to invest in a course.
Coming through either, right, for us potentially because of the pandemic. There was like a sense of, oh, this backup, this job that's our day job isn't trustworthy, you know, because it could go away at any moment. We really do need to diversify. We really do need to not be so dependent upon this system, you know. Then we found help. Renee found some amazing help.
So that's what we had to do too. It was hard. It was really, you know, it was a lot of money for us. But I think we both kind of saw the long-term potential of it, and investing in a course and seeing the return on investment, like tenfold, right? Like just really seeing that. But again, coming back to, how do we all not have basic line access to this information?
Yeah. You know, when you're going out into the world and you don't understand what getting all these student loans means, you don't understand, you know, what getting credit card means. Like I remember when I was 18 and like my friend worked at Home Depot. We both worked there, and she was opening credit cards for people. She's like, hey, open one just so I can get the number, like the count. And so I did, and I had no idea what any of it meant, right? Like I had never had a credit card. Nobody had ever explained to me what a credit card was or the difference between that and my checking account card, right? Nobody ever told me any of that. And so I had to learn the hard way after like, now I'm like digging myself out of credit card debt. But, you know, there's just, you go out into the world, right? And you're told, you know, go to college. Fine. I went to college, you know, you're told, get a job. Fine. I got a job. Nobody teaches you anything. I mean, if you're lucky, your parents teach you, right? Like, for example, Tori, she talks about in her podcast about how her parents really taught her about money at a very young age. I did not have that kind of parent. So I was not taught at all how to manage money, you know, how to save. I didn't know anything about an emergency fund. So everything literally was like things that are so basic of money management, zero, right? Like I was working full time at 18 years old. What I did with that money, I could not tell you. You know, so I mean, like you, like we were talking about before, like we were talking, you know, like we would use it to go out, right? And my budget was like, this is how much I made. Here my bills are paid. Okay, this is what's left in my checking account. Swipe, 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 swipe till I have $20 left. Okay, I can't spend no more, right? Mm-hmm. And I actually just saw a meme about like, oh yeah, you know, right before payday you're broke, and I'm like, but why? You shouldn't. You shouldn't be broke right before payday. Like you should be fine. You know, like you shouldn't be waiting for that paycheck to hit. You know, you should be, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, then we got to get you on check, and we got to get you a budget, and we have to get you a checking account cushion, and we have to set you up so that you're not waiting for the paycheck to drop, right? Like it's just,
I feel like that's the gem right there, right? Like if we're living paycheck to paycheck, and the way you even say like, we need to set you up, right? Like it's an invitation to say it doesn't have to be that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. None of us know. Some of us didn't know that there is another way.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the thing. Like I didn't know what a budget was. I didn't know. I really didn't, right? Like, isn't it crazy? Like, I really had no idea what this structure was. And so I didn't know that there was another way to do this where I wasn't waiting for payday every month. You know?
I think this is a conversation about goals, too. And actually, as you're talking, it strikes me as that when I was 15 and I was working, and then I would be the person that balanced my checkbook. Like I'm that 15-year-old balancing my checkbook from the job. And actually, when I lived in Hong Kong for a while, you can put your passport book into the money and it will balance their checkbook for you, actually, which is cool.
That's so cool.
That is so awesome.
A long time ago, but so my goal, and this came down to my parents, was to save. So I didn't look any more than what I was saving, and it wasn't to spend on anything. It was just to save. And so actually Renee and a lot of other comadres have to remind me, like you are, like it's not just to save, just having money in the bank isn't the end goal. The end goal is to use it for life, for the things I want, for things I choose, Mm-hmm. And so this conversation about goals is like the goal could be you make money, you budget to go out and do whatever the hell you want, right? Or you make money, you budget so that you can save it and just like kind of hold on to it, but really in the end it's a sort of balance, right? You want to be able both to save and to enjoy, and I think that's really important,
Yeah, we weren't put here to work, and until we die, right? Like we're not gonna just like work until we're 65 and 70. Like that's not why we're here, and so I'm all about putting in the budget what makes you happy, right? I have a client who puts in like quite a bit of money for Starbucks, and that's fine because you buy Starbucks every single day. That's cool, like no problems there because that makes you happy and it's in your budget. You're good, right? I really like to travel. And so I've already decided that as soon as my debt is paid, all my extra income, guess where it's going? To travel. And we're going to be traveling and I'm going to spend my money, right? Because that's why it's there. Now I'm still not changing anything else. I'm never going to stop investing, right? And my emergency fund is good. So, the rest is really for you to utilize. And I think there is like a lot of people have that fear of losing it, like, and those like triggers of scarcity and like, maybe you grew up and you were taught to hoard that money. And that's a really difficult thing because it's a lot of fear that comes when you think about spending it. Like, what if I lose it all? And that also affects people when it comes to investing, right? People are so scared of investing because they're so scared of losing money. And I totally understand that. There's so much like a huge range of people's money mindsets. It's all over the place and you have to like kind of meet yourself where you are. And we all have money triggers and we all have like emotional ties to our money that absolutely, can be traced back to the way you were raised. We actually did 2 money therapy in quotes because we're not real therapists, right? Money therapy circles. And it was really deep, like right away, just thinking about what's your first money memory. Right? Like if you think, what was the first time that you remember anything about money?
This coin person go by to the Woodwood Mall to go buy like something at the mall, and stopped at the pet store, and I was looking at the gardener snakes, and I lost this purse, the little purse full of like random change in it. And it was devastating. That's one of my first memories of money. Isn't it? Like that's big.
Like you lost all that money essentially.
Dollars of change. What the hell? Like why can't you just be like, hear me, there you go. Like what? That's one of my first money memories.
Yeah, thinking about your first money memory, what does that make you feel? Like what are your emotions that are tied to that? We did like, 2 hours. We had to do 2 hours of just sharing all of our different perspectives, and everybody has a very different experience with it. And understanding that, working through your triggers and like really seeing like, okay, knowing that this is my trigger, how am I going to, confront that when it comes to my budget? And then starting to build the questions in your mind, right? Like really what I tell people, it's like, okay, wants and needs. and you mentioned this in the beginning, right? Understanding the difference between what do I really need and what do I just want. And if you want something, that's okay too, as long as it's in your budget and it doesn't make you go into debt or, throw you completely off, then you're okay, right? Like, I'm already over budget this month because I actually had like some crazy anxieties. And so my trigger for spending is when I'm anxious, right? Like, so when I'm anxious and like my instant is like, oh my gosh, like I want to make things easy. I don't want to cook, so I'm going to buy food already prepared, right? Or I'm feeling emotional, so I want to eat fast food. That's my trigger. And so I work through that by making sure that I leave a cushion in my account so that if that happens, then I can address it, right? Like, there always comes a point where you're just like, you know what, F it, like I'm gonna go for it, but it doesn't throw me off. At the end of the day, right? I still saved this month already over $1,700, and I still, paid off my debt on time. Everything is fine. All I did was spend like 20 more bucks. So there's no harm, no foul. As long as your goals are being met and you're still, in line, it's not like you're going to blow $300, $400, which if we are, then we got to talk about something else. But, as long as it's like, don't beat yourself up over it, right? And just stay. And it's a lot. It's a lot of emotions tied with money, very different emotions for every single person, right? And that's things that we help work through. And actually, that workshop was really popular. I did it with my friend who's a mindset coach. And so we did it together, and, we have a whole workbook that we did and helping people through that. It was actually a lot of fun. People are like asking for a part 2 because I think people really like to see where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this conversation on needs and wants. And I want to dive in and complicate it a little bit, because we were talking too about if we buy, local and from other like Latinas or other women of color, it's just gonna cost. We need to budget more, basically. And I think it brings up a conversation of needs and wants in that moment. It's like, if I was really working on needs, I would buy the cheapest thing possible. Like my mom, or my people, my family. I'm like, I don't want to talk about my mom, but only shop in the clearance. Like you just go to the. When really what I need is, a shirt for work, or something like that. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But I only go to the clearance aisle. But if I actually wanted to save time and energy and actually meet my needs, I would just go to any aisle in the Marshalls. It doesn't matter if it's in the clearance, right? And get the shirt that I need, right? And to me, this is kind of like a conversation of needs means sometimes in my upbringing, I don't know, like the minimum, the minimal, and this kind of brings up that conversation about minimalism and whiteness and classism and stuff, And then wants is the extra. It's shopping in the clearance. It's buying from local and from women of color, and actually, total lie. Like, that's not at all in my value system, right? Like, if actually we're to meet my needs and to meet the needs of not just me but my community, I need to budget just a little bit more. So I can give back, Again, the default is that the needs of the community will meet each other and it will all be free. No one will make any money off of that. And that's another kind of, we live in a classist society and a capitalist. We need money for our rent. You need money for your, basic needs. So I want to talk, needs, wants. What do you think? How does that play into your budget? And actually, what's your emergency budget too? I want to know what your emergency budget is.
So you mean my emergency fund or like my emergency budget in case I go over budget?
What is it? How much does one need for an emergency fund?
Okay, I'm going to be right back, y'all. You keep talking.
Okay. So for an emergency fund, it really varies depending on your situation, but it could be anywhere between 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to a year. Now, if you have a job that is, maybe not 100% guaranteed, if you have only one income household, right, then you want to always go for the higher end, right? So you want to go 6 months and more, because the more uncertainty there is in your income, the the higher the likelihood that you're going to actually need to tap into this, right? So an emergency fund covers somebody can't work, somehow you don't have income coming in, your car breaks down and it takes $3,000 to fix it. Those are the kinds of things that come up, right? Or if somebody has illness, chronic illness or, things like that, they always should go with the higher end of like 9 to 12 months, right? Because you need to prepare for those emergencies. Actually, the statistics show that many Americans can't even cover a $3,600 emergency, right? Like, what happened today if you had to cover, like, somebody hit you and wrecked your car and they just left, and you have to pay your deductible. Let's say your deductible is $1,000, right? So things like that. That's why you need an emergency fund.
I love it. It's so circumstantial. It's just so relational. It's like dependent upon the. That totally makes sense. I need to work on.
Yeah. So if you're in the, your job is secure, you have a 2-income household, you're healthy, then you can fly for 3 months, right? Or 6 months. So always work your way up. I'm working on a 3-month emergency fund, but I want to go for 6 because I am a 1-income household. So I need more security in that sense. So it's definitely like a range depending on your situation. And that's the thing about personal finance, is very personal. Okay. And there's no straight answer.
Monthly to what is it that you need monthly to, like, thrive, and then you say 3 times that, basically. Yeah.
And that's where your needs versus wants conversation comes in, because guess what? When you're talking about an emergency fund, you're not going to pay for the gym. You're not going to pay for your nails. You're not going to pay for that stuff, because that's not a need. An emergency fund is for a true need. So usually you want to, like, make a list of your expenses, look at what is a true need: housing, food, gas, transportation, healthcare, that kind of stuff. And then you add that up and multiply that, right? But you can't, this is the thing. You can't always put in your wants too. There's nothing going to hurt about having more money in there just in case, right? But just as a goal orientation, like, start out with only your needs, expenses per month at 3 months, then work your way up as you go along, right? And the other thing is also, there is such a thing as having too much in savings, right? Don't just put it all into savings, because what happens is, if you have it in a basic savings account, you're actually losing money because of inflation, right? And so
they're like, your money is you're losing money. You need to put it in gold or property.
You need to put it in a high yield savings account. That's where you need to put it. Okay, so you don't put your money in a checking account. You don't put your money in a basic savings account. You put your emergency fund in a high yield savings account that's going to earn you money. Okay.
Hi.
Yes. Yes, because I was just saying that your money actually.
High yield savings account.
Yes. We're talking, with your money sitting in a basic account, it's losing value because of inflation. And then, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news, but they've been talking a lot about inflation lately, right? A lot of different factors are going, a lot of different factors because of the government flushing the economy with money, and, the prices for things are going up. And so inflation is definitely in the process of happening right now. And so that every day that your money sits in a checking account that doesn't earn you anything, every day your money sits in a savings account that has very low yields, then you're literally losing money, right? And so that's why
summer saver account, like a teacher, I did like Schools First, and it has a summer saver account, and I think that's considered a high yield. I think it's like 3% interest or something like that. I actually don't know.
Well, usually, so before COVID, they were at 1 to 2% high yield savings. And the best one before, I believe, was American Express. They had the highest one. Right now, things are low because interest rates are low in general in the economy. And so right now, like, you'll be lucky if you find 1%. I don't know any that have 1%, but there are some that at least you can earn something. So, for example, my mom just opened one with I forget what bank it was, but she put in over $60,000, and within 3 months she had like $30 that they paid her in interest. So they're paying her, right, instead of you paying anything. And that's the important thing, is at least your money is working a little bit for you while it's sitting there. But of course, that is nowhere near anything that you can earn in the stock market. But you always need to have liquid savings in case of emergencies, ready to tap into, in case anything happens, like especially if you own a home, right? Yeah, emergencies happen all the times in your home, so you need that money. Did you have a question?
Is high interest the same as dividend rate? Rate, is that?
No.
Oh, that's
So dividends are things that are paid to you in investing. So when you're investing, there's such things as, when your certain stocks pay you when they make a lot of money. And so then you can reinvest them. Yeah, but that's something different.
I have 2.50 for my summer saver, I think. 2.50. That's pretty good, right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
I know. But they can only take a maximum of 2,000 out per month, and so then at the end of the year, it basically fronts you for July for teachers who are off. So it's like so it's not always. I can't always put that much money in it. Through the year, but that's pretty good. I think that's here.
Two things I want to make sure that we get to is like, besides emergency funds and high yield and savings and all that, other like long-term investments. And if you want to briefly talk about Bitcoin or I mean, I say that I mean, and we could be really quick. I say that because I've seen a lot of people recently like get really excited about that. And so it's like their entrance into investing. And I'm like, but it's not long term and it's super volatile. And, so maybe just as a cautionary,
yes.
What do you have to say?
So, you're going to get me heated. I'm trying to okay. This is what I have to say about that. If you're meeting your goals, if you have an emergency fund, if you're contributing to your retirement account at a good rate to grow your money in a tax advantage account like a retirement account, and you're doing all the things, and you still have play money, right? You still have fun money, and then you want to invest in Bitcoin or things like that, fine, right?
This is like Vegas money. I see. Yes.
Exactly.
It's like gambling money.
That's the problem. Like, that is exactly what it is. When you're investing in individual stocks, especially when you're investing in these currencies that really people can make up and have no regulation, you're literally gambling, right? It's literally gambling. Even if it's like just individual stocks, you're still gambling, right? Anytime that you are putting money into just a single stock that can be so volatile and changes from day to day, you are putting all your eggs in one basket and risking losing it all, right? That's just what it comes down to. And that's why I suggest that if you're taking care of all the other things and you still have extra money, you want to invest in these things, fine. But do not ever invest anything that you're not ready to lose. And by investing in that way, I mean investing in individual stocks or these cryptocurrencies, right? In a retirement account where you're investing in target date funds, in index funds, your money is way, way safer because you are investing in different parts, different stocks, different bonds, a variety of things across the market. Your money's safer, right? I always say, what is the likelihood that all top 500 companies of the United States, for example, in the S&P 500, are all going to collapse at one time? Highly, highly unlikely, right? That every single one of them is going to just drop. The likelihood of one single company dropping drastically and all your money is in there, that's a huge risk, right? Yeah. And so I never, ever, I personally do not invest in individual stocks at all. And, I don't know if I ever want to go there because I'm more of a long-term thinker and I want to see my money grow with a diverse portfolio, and I want to have variety and all the things. So, just know the high risk that you're taking when you are investing in things like cryptocurrencies that are not regulated, that are not, really a thing that's recognized by the government yet, if that ever happens, right? So it's very, very risky. And that's the thing. Also, not just with these currencies, but anything that you hear hype about. Look at what happened with GameStop, right? You guys heard about GameStop? So, with GameStop, it was all hype. People were hyping it up. Fine. And yes, some people did make money, but guess what? Anybody who put in money and then sold it under a year is going to pay super high capital gains taxes. If you buy something and you sell it under a year,
I had no clue.
Yeah.
For investment, same for like marketing investments or whatever the stock investments, you pay capital gains if you sell also within a year?
If you sell within a year in a brokerage account or in an individual stocks, then yes, you will pay capital gains taxes, which are really, really high, especially if you sell under a year, because that's going to be considered short-term investing and they don't want you to do that. So they will tax you really high. So maybe you got $200,000, but guess what? Those taxes are going to come for you real, real quick. If you sell and buy within your retirement accounts, there is no taxes because you're just actually there's some that only allow you to do it 2 times in a year, right? It's limited, even within that. So there's a lot more flexibility in the retirement types.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's like cutting.
Oh, sorry. It's like when you sell a house and if you reinvest the money, you can kind of dodge the capital gains tax, right? Kind of stuff like that.
Well, I don't know about houses because I haven't dealt with the house yet. But if you're doing it within a retirement account, because these are essentially tax protected while they're in their period before you retire, then you are able to buy and sell a little bit more freely than in a brokerage account. In a brokerage account, girl, right there. Anytime somebody tells me brokerage, the first thing I think of, taxes. Because that's going to get you. And let me tell you, the more that I have learned about investing, the more I realize that really what people, rich people that do this all the time, that's what they're worried about is the taxes, because that's what happens when you're in these types of accounts. So for example, we're putting money into a 529. So a 529 is a mechanism where you can invest money for a child's college education, right? I invest my money in there, and it's post-tax. So when money grows, and I use it for an education expense later on, then I will pay no taxes at all. That's amazing, right? It's similar to a Roth IRA. You pay taxes now, you let it grow, all that growth, you take it out, you don't pay taxes. So in a brokerage though, right, you will end up paying taxes. And if the shorter that you hold that, and you like I said, under a year, you're going to pay even more taxes. So that's always the cautionary tale of just be very careful with that.
Renee, I feel like I'm just so much. I'm sorry.
I haven't been feeling 100%.
I know.
This week, so I'm I'm still trying to come back. But so what are the main things I want to make sure that we touch? What are the main 529? You named I think that's like a staple if you have kids. I have one for each of my kids, and I've actually because my kids go to a private school, and there was a time where I got behind on tuition, so I was able to kind of pull out with I didn't even have to explain. I just went in there, made a transfer, and that was it. And I was able to pay the tuition. So 529, and what's the other main things we should be investing in?
Well, I mean, always start, when it comes to investing, start with your retirement accounts available through your employer if you have an employer. If you don't have an employer and you're self-employed, then you can open up either a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, or there's other types. So there's a solo 401k. There's different kinds of IRAs specifically for self-employed people. So just because you're self-employed does not mean that you cannot have a retirement account. And if you have a retirement account through your employer, and let's say you're maxing it out or something or you're putting in at least until the match that they give you, if your employer gives you a match, you can still have another one outside of that. So you can have 401k at work, and you can have a traditional or a Roth IRA outside, because in those outside ones, you manage the investments, right? In the employer-sponsored one, you are basically subject to whatever types of investments they choose. So in my personal one, I mostly have target date funds, which for me is fine. I love them. But some people might not like that. They want to create their own portfolio, or they want to have more flexibility. So then you can actually create your own in brokerages like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, those kinds of very low fee institutions. Then you can actually start your own. So always when it comes to investing, start with your retirement account. That's step one, right? If you're maxing out your retirement account, you're maxing out your Roth IRA, Then you can get into a brokerage, right? And the brokerages have more flexibility, of course, because they don't have that restriction of like you can't touch your money till you're 59 or 60. So that's one benefit to it. Definitely, you can put the money in and you can take it out. But again, be wary of taxes. It's like my biggest thing. Like my alarms go off when I hear brokerage.
So can you give us a sense when you say taxes and you say like these high, like capital gain, like, can you give us a percentage? Like, what do you mean? Like how much taxes?
Okay, I have to look up the exact amounts because I don't have them memorized, and it depends, again, like I said, on the amount of time that you had it. So I can look that up real quick. But basically, when you, from what I remember actually right now, is when you take it out.
I love she's crunching numbers. Like it's so
because these are like very specific, right? Like this is not, I actually was like trying to like
I think it's important to, when people say, oh, taxes, I mean, we all pay taxes, but I think when you hear the numbers of like,
so this is what it says. The U.S. capital gains tax only applies to profits from the sale of assets held for more than 1 year, referred to as long-term capital gains. Okay. The rates are 0, 15, or 20%, depending on your tax bracket. Okay. Short-term capital gains taxes applies to assets held for a year or less, and they are taxed at ordinary income. And so a lot of it, you know what I mean? So then when you're talking about ordinary income, girl, that's gonna be a lot more. And it also is very dependent on your tax bracket. I actually was just trying to, and one thing I just, taxes are hard. Okay, I'm not a tax expert anywhere near that. So one thing I learned recently.
Shout out to Natalie Gomez. I just want to.
Yes, our CPA is awesome. But I just learned, and I didn't know this before, when they tax you, they don't tax you on all of your money, right? So what they do is they tax you up to like one part, and I forget because it varies depending on the steps. They tax you one part, and then after that they tax the 10, but they don't tax you on all of your money. There's actually like
is that way on the W-2? Because I get like sometimes 2 or 3 W-2s because I work at different campuses, and it'll have like 2 different amounts. Like for the year, it'll say like taxable income and then like total or something like that.
Yeah, so I didn't know that, and I wish I had the. I just took a workshop yesterday where I learned this actually. And there's a really good diagram that shows you like based on how much you get paid, how much they tax, which starts down here, then this big chunk is left alone, but then after every amount after that. So I think after one is like after 40,187, then they tax the rest of it.
Oh,
it's really interesting. And taxes are so complicated. This is like a whole other thing that I'm barely starting to understand, honestly. But I do know enough to know that you have to be very careful when you're buying and selling investments in a regular brokerage, because you are going to have to pay these capital gains taxes. So,
okay. So we have 529 or retirement account first and foremost. Yeah. So I have a 403B because it's the equivalent, right, of a 401k through our educational institution. So retirement account, and then brokerage, is that like an option, or you would say it's something that we should do?
It's really optional, honestly, because it's like, what do you need it for? What is your goal here? So I had somebody reach out to me recently, and she's like, hey, like I want to start investing like outside. And I was like, okay, but we need to talk about what is your goal, right? Is your goal to have more money for retirement? Then we would have to go traditional or Roth IRA. Is your goal to just have like your money grow even more and like have the accessibility to like tap into it in like 7 to 10 years? Because also, if you're going to invest, you have to think long term. Don't even think about touching that money for like at least 7 to 10 years, right? Don't think about it. Like that's not money that's going to be, because again, if you take it out, you're going to pay taxes.
Right.
So that's the thing. So it depends on your goal. Like, what is your goal here? Like, what do you want to achieve with doing this? And then you can kind of see which route works best, understanding the limitations, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I
love that.
Always start with first step one is invest in your employer sponsored plan, and then really understand what the plan entails, what you're invested in. So fees are huge when it comes to investing, and if you're in a target date fund that has a huge, like a high fee, then you're actually losing money. And that's a huge.
And I gotta go back and look at my look at my paperwork, because I'm like, I started in 2013 and I think I opened it then, but I'm just so used to them taking money out of my paycheck that I honestly, I mean, I will look at it to see what I have in there, but I don't know all the
Also,
details.
I'm gonna send both of you. Do you have a 403b too?
Yeah, I have it. Hills as well. And
I'm gonna send you guys a podcast.
Before they tax us too, right? Is that?
Yeah. So it reduces your income. So I'm gonna send you both a podcast and a website that's all about 403bs, because I actually learned that you have to be very careful with what you're invested in a 403b, because they're very predatory on teachers when it comes to insurance products. And they actually, insurance products have very high fees, and so they can really chew away at your gains. And so I'll send you that. It was really informational for me. I personally don't have that, but I have a client that's a teacher, and so that was one big thing to learn, is like understanding what exactly you're invested in, so that you make sure that you're not paying these really crazy fees.
Good to know. Good to know. Okay, any other like general things people should be investing in, like main things?
Well, there's always other things to do, like investing in properties, right? Always investment property.
I'm like, I really have to say this. So I just bought a house, technically still not moved in yet because we're fixing it up. So I'm in my mom's house. But I have to say, like, I learned so much in the process of buying the house, because they looked at every single last inch of my money. I mean, I was like, do you want my DNA? Like, what else could you possibly want from me? But the biggest thing I learned was, I think what you've kind of been saying is, it was possible. Because a year ago, I thought, there is no fucking way. I was like, there's no way we're going to buy a house. I mean, for years I was saying, there's no way we're going to get a house. It wasn't until, well, one is we didn't have to pay our student loans for a year.
I just talked about that,
Yeah. I was able to pay off debt. That's exactly, instead of paying my student loan, that I took that same money and paid off all of my debt. And so then, so it became possible, but I wouldn't even have thought about it. And I luckily had a very good, like, financial person, right? I don't know what they call them, right? But the loan officer or whatever, just really kind of, and she was like, well, how much can you afford monthly? And, and like working backwards that way, and, just very honest. And yeah, it was an interesting process, but again, just feeling like it was possible in a way that I never had thought was going to be. Now, I mean, I'm not going to lie. We did have help. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I pulled my bootstraps, right? Like, we had help from family for our down payment, which, first of all, I don't even know why we have shame about that, because white people do that shit all the time. It's called generational wealth, right? Like, they fucking buy their kids straight up homes and multiple homes and shit. So the fact that my mom and his parents gave us money for a down payment is not anything to be ashamed about. But still, the fact that, like, and my husband definitely, like, because we had to pay off so much debt in order to qualify and all that, and we hustled our ass. We were like, gotta pay off all this shit, and we were able to get it done. But I just have to name that is very exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you.
Huge. Yeah. So definitely property is another type of investment, and not just your personal home where you live, but like investing in other properties that you can, people are really doing the Airbnb thing. And that's something. But I always want to caution, like, first get your things straight at home before you start to go out of these things, you know, and really get your stuff straight. Make sure you have everything in line. And if it's this extra money, then fine, you know, go for it. Also, with the, you know, kind of reality check of the fact that, like, owning a home is not cheap, because there's always emergencies that happen, and you can't just call somebody to come and take care of it. Like, it's you are the somebody. And you know? So I think that's one thing that I always caution people about, is like, wait, you want to buy a home? Amazing, let's do this. But it's not just about saving for the down payment. It's not about buying the house. It's about, you know, the closing costs. It's about an emergency fund for your house. It's about if you need to do repairs and things. Like, this is not cheap. This is a lot of money that we're talking about.
I'm so glad that you said that, because that was one thing, honestly. I was actually going to be okay with renting, because I was like, fuck, I don't have to do shit. Like, something breaks, I just call the landlady, right? And now I'm like, oh, fuck, like, you are the do that. But like you said, all that means is my budget has to adjust itself.
Yes.
Right? My budget just has to adjust itself, which that's exactly even before I even brought the idea of buying a house, I was like, can I readjust my budget to make a mortgage payment fit? And so once I was able to do that math, this is how I had to get my husband on board, was like saying I can afford this much, you know, towards hold on. She's there.
I made it on my it took that long to download all the Google stuff. Anyways, I'm here. I've been listening. I'm here. We're good.
So we do, I mean, you know, we don't necessarily have a time limit, but we want to honor everybody's time. Before because we can go on and on and on.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, there's so many. I actually just did a podcast this week, and it was literally 2 episodes, because it was so.
You can just go on forever. So before, the 2 things I want to ask is, well, first of all, the one thing is that you are our new columnist for St. Lunita, our financial columnist, which I want to say, I think, just so people know, because I think it's interesting when people, we're in submissions right now for our newest edition in the summer, and I don't know if we've gotten it. I think we still have just one. But I think there's a lot of fear sometimes.
Call out. Come through, everyone. Submit things.
Even our own friends. Like, last time I was trying to guilt trip people into, like, submit a piece. And I think there's a lot of, like, fear about like putting yourself out there. But I want to say, for you actually came to us and said, hey, if you need a financial columnist. And I was like, yes.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we do.
So we are definitely people. I hope that's the message I want people to hear, is that we're not gatekeepers, right? We're not trying to, like, when we take submissions, it's not like we're judging them for this, like, you know, this expectations. Really, we are here to serve our communities and
sorry.
Out there. So just like, it can be as easy as that, right? Like, you reached out to us and we were like, yes, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So our new financial columnist for St. Lunita. And before we go, you got to tell people where they can find you, how they can contact you, all of that.
Yeah, so you can find me at mom, obviously. mom_money_boss. And I'm so excited to be, you know, involved with both of you, because honestly, I wanted to do it because I want to learn from you. Like, I already got the money part down. Like, I know the money stuff in and out, but now I want to understand the colonization impact, the patriarchal impact, like all these different.
Oh, we're so close.
There she is. Got it. Yeah, we got it.
Okay, we got you. I was gonna say, that's just something that's really important to me. because, you know, so many things, right? Like I just want to expand my mind, and I'm also very conscious of the fact that we're not on a level playing field, right? When we're making money. And there's definitely a lot of things that we have to work on it together to make sure that we're supporting each other and our communities.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah. I'm excited. Thank you.
I'm excited too. Any final thoughts, comments?
Sorry.
Oh, I love
I'm surprised. I'm surprised mine haven't come in here.
The scooter. He was just like, "There's just we're doing it. We're making it work." You know. Thank you for being here. Thank you for creating the time. You know, and thank you for the education. I think the last thing I want to say is, you know, I think I want to stop keeping secrets. I want to break the culture of secrecy around money, and I want to make it more transparent. Because I think it's important. It's like the thing that should not be named. You know, it's like Voldemort if we don't give it language. You know, and it's yeah. So thank you so much for helping us. You know, giving us language around high yield savings and emergency funds and all these Roth.
And just
What
so
is
you know, just so you know, Ally Bank is my favorite. Absolutely my favorite. And if you're a crazy organized person like me, Ally Bank has buckets where you can like distribute to different kinds of savings, and it has goals that you can set. It's amazing. I love it. Just a side note. And it's also a high yield savings account. But yes, absolutely no more secrets. And this is one thing that I'm still in the process of working on my own internal things with all of this. And like one thing when we talk about the secrets is like I am still dealing with imposter syndrome and like just taking ownership of what's going on, and also like still feeling very vulnerable when I am very honest. Like I have literally posted my budget on my page, and I'm like, these are my numbers. Okay. I brought home about $67,000 last year. Like that's my, take home. I'm like, you want to know how much I pay for rent? I pay $1,300 for rent. And I'm very open. I'm like, look, I rent from my father-in-law. Okay. Like, let's be real. Like I'm good. Like, let's just rip it off. Like there's no shame in whatever you're doing, however you make it work, That's where you're at. And so I want to give power to no matter what situation you're in, and just being honest with it. I hope that my page is a safe space for anybody to be able to share whatever situation they're in, because I'm not here to judge you at all and any decisions that you make. I'm just here to give you insight and perspective, right?
I love it. I love it so much. All right.
We gotta come back to this conversation another time.
I know, for sure.
We'll do it again.
All right. We'll see.
Bye, Nathalia. Thank you so much. Hold on, honey. We'll be there. Bye.
Alrighty, bye.
Bye. Oh, hey.
Hold